Welcome back to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Kyle Torgerson in studio today. Chris Bornstead is not with us. He's got some family medical issues going on right now that he's taking care of. So we hope everything works out well for you, Chris. Today is Monday, March 5th. We have a number of topics on the agenda today. Talk about some assets seizure that's going on around the country. And this has to do with the executive order that Trump signed back on December 21st. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Some issues that people are not familiar with regard to fees, transaction fees that talk about or impact rather cryptocurrency transactions. And then we're going to have a little conversation about the student march in Clatskanie. And to give everybody as much heads up on this, why don't we open with that? So Kyle, tell everybody what's going on in Clatskanie today.
So right now, Clatskanie students will be supporting their elementary school teacher, principal, whose contract was not filed again. So today at 12:30, they'll be marching to support him.
Okay, so there's for people who aren't familiar with why they're doing this, there's a little background behind this story. A week ago on Monday, they had a board meeting there at the Clatskanie Middle High School, and a board took a vote 3-2 to not continue the principal's contract. And apparently the superintendent was saying that the principal doesn't work well with the administrative staff that's there. But the students aren't buying it. They showed up, a number of people showed up at the board meeting a week ago, and over 30 minutes of public comments made in support of this principal. One person brought a petition carrying over 500 signatures, requesting the renewal of his contract. And the person who presented the petition said that 41 families have already stated that they will withdraw their students from the school if Thorid's contract was not renewed. Sounds like these students and families are pretty serious about keeping him as the principal there.
Gotta be doing something right.
Yeah. Well, you just recently came from a school environment. How many teachers would you say is in the Kelso school system that students would turn out like this for?
There's actually a lot. Kelso teachers, not trying to be like, yeah, Kelso, but I feel very supported at Kelso. It's very nice. I know just off the top of my head, I'd probably do that for 5 of the teachers there. Some of the principals and vice principals were super nice too. Yeah.
Well, interesting turn of events there. So if you're interested in being part of that student march that's taking place in Clatskanie, it starts at 12:30, starts at the Clatskanie Middle High School, and then ends around 1 o'clock over at the elementary school. And I guess this is in time for when the students are being released there. So head over to Clatskanie if you'd like to see what's going on with the student march there. Interesting stuff. So let's have a little conversation about the assets seizure. I'm going to go to my notes here on it's actually a department of the U.S. Treasury that published this report. It's the Office of Foreign Asset Control, otherwise known as OFAC. But they published a list of all the people and organizations whose assets have been blocked or frozen as the result of the December 21st executive order signed by Donald Trump. Now, here's the interesting thing to know. We've been made aware already for some time now that a number of these indictments and things are circulating around the country. And interestingly enough, a lot of them in Hollywood and in Washington, D.C. So kind of seems to be the two seats of corruption as it pertains to human trafficking. But that doesn't mean that it's not happening all around the country. So interestingly enough, I didn't know that it was going to be this big. I just knew that this was coming. But the Office of Foreign Asset Control has published a report on all the people that they have either blocked or frozen assets on, people and or organizations. And this report, Kyle, as you now know, seeing it, it's 1,108 pages long.
And now we'll begin to read the entire full thing on stream.
Yeah, just hold on. Okay, Kyle, you start with page 1. No, we wouldn't do that to people. No, the thing is that what an indication that the president is very serious about pounding a nail in the coffin of human trafficking in this country. And that's just incredible news. You know, the other thing is there's a news story here recently in Washington, if you'd bring that one up, Kyle, of the 18 men arrested for a human trafficking mission in Washington County. And one of these people is actually from the city of Kelso, which is in our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
You recognize his name?
Actually, I do not.
Okay. So looks like they're from all over the place. Beaverton, Tillamook, Fontana, California, Newburgh. Another one from Beaverton. I guess they got something going on there. Camas, Hillsbury. Third one, man, there's 3 people from Beaverton. A couple from Portland that were picked up. But 18 men picked up in Washington. And so there's the guy. Roman Cabrera Galen, 38, of Kelso, Washington, for commercial sexual solicitation. You know, it's terrible that there's this many people out there doing this sort of thing, but there's their mugshots. Let's make them famous. There's their mugshots. They're all being, you know, what's interesting is if you look at these people, some of them, you know, when you think about how people are profiled these days, you may look at them and go, yeah, I can see that. But are there faces here that you probably wouldn't expect to be seeing on this?
Yeah, I was pretty, when I was looking through them, I was kind of shocked to see just how different and diverse it was.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, you know, these could be somebody who, you know, runs a local agency or has a lawn care business or, you know, has a sign making business or whatever. Somebody who's performing a local service in the community could be any one of these people. And who knows where women, young girls, children are running into these people. But yeah, as you can see, they come from all different walks of life.
Scary world.
It's a scary world indeed, but glad to see that President Trump is making some headway against this. But you're going to see more and more of these kinds of reports popping up because these folks are being pulled out of society, thankfully. And all these people that have been spending money. Now, you've noticed that a lot of protests and things that have gone on around the country, you've noticed they have significantly reduced, haven't they?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how many of these organizations that claim they're protesting other things that are going on in the country. It makes you wonder how many of them also had connections in human trafficking because their funds have been frozen. 1,108 pages of people and organizations whose money has been frozen. And that is available on the website for Office of Foreign Asset Control if you'd like to read it. If you want us to send you, because we have it here in PDF format, if you'd like to browse through this and read the names and organizations that are on this, put it in the comment section below in the video, and we'll either find a way to get it to you there, or we could certainly make it available to people here on our website too. So anyway, lots of good news happening on a bad news subject, which is human trafficking. So good to see progress being made there. Let's talk about cryptocurrency.
Oh boy.
NFL star Richard Sherman is talking about some of the fee problems, and so put that up there. He says every time you make a trade, there's a fee skimming off the top. A lot of people don't realize until you make 10 transactions in a day. You're like, why am I $200, $300, $400 or dollars less in your account? They charge you out the yin yang. I think it's funny that he uses that, and it limits what you thought you'd be able to do. You don't want to do that many transactions because you get hit over the head. Now, what Richard Sherman doesn't say is that actually what he's just described, that's the whole problem. That's how you run into issue using cryptocurrency, doing all these little micro transactions, as they call them, and multiple transactions in a single day. Would have been smarter to use a larger sum. So you have a video queued up. It's actually published a few years ago, but some great information on that. Kind of describes how, if you're using cryptocurrency, how to avoid some of the fee structure and why it actually happens. So go ahead and roll the video.
Major advantages of Bitcoin is that you can supposedly send money between any 2 points on Earth for free. But if you've sent Bitcoins once or twice before, you probably noticed that there are in fact transaction fees. So, what's going on here exactly? Before I explain how the fees are calculated, I want to explain what Bitcoin fees are. When miners order transactions into blocks inside the blockchain, they get paid twice. The first payment is what you would call the system, which grants them a bounty for succeeding in entering their block of transactions. The second payment is the fees the user attached to the transactions that got included in that block. But you don't always have to pay these fees. There are certain rules that dictate if and when you need to pay them. Of course, you can choose to disregard the rules and not attach a fee to your payment, but it is then possible that your transaction will take a long time to be processed. Rule number 1. Smaller amounts pay a fee. If the numbers of bitcoins you are sending is smaller than 0.01 bitcoins, you'll be required to pay a miner's fee. This fee is required in order to prevent users from spamming the network with microtransactions. Even if the whole transaction is more than 0.01 bitcoins, but the change you get back from your inputs is more than 0.01 bitcoins, you will need to pay a fee. Here's a short example. Let's say you want to buy a watch for 1.999 bitcoin. You use an input of 2 bitcoins and receive back an input of 0.001 bitcoin as change. Since the change is such a small amount, you'll be required to pay an additional miner's fee for it as well. Rule number 2. Older coins have less fees. If the inputs you are sending in a transaction are older, then there's a greater chance they won't require a fee. Old coins mean coins that haven't been moved for a long time. Rule number 3. Smaller transactions require less fees. Each transaction is made out of inputs. The less inputs used to compile a transaction, the less fees will be required. So if you were to send 1 bitcoin and use 4 inputs of 0.25 bitcoins, it is more likely that this will require a fee than if you were to send just 1 input of 1 bitcoin. Keep in mind that most times you won't have that much control over whether or not your transaction requires fees or not. Your Bitcoin wallet will usually make the optimization of inputs for you, so you will avoid fees when possible. Today's miner fee is 0.001 Bitcoin, which is around 6 cents, and is probably worth paying to get your transaction processed quickly. For more information and Bitcoin tutorials, visit 99bitcoins.com. Everything you need to get started with Bitcoin today.
All right, so there's some explanation of transaction fees that can happen. Like, there's various organizations, and when people ask like how much the fees are, take an example, a organization like Coinbase. If you have Coinbase account, you could pay 1.4% per time you buy the currency and 1.4% when you sell. And that means you not only have to make money on cryptocurrency, but have to make an extra 3% to pay off Coinbase before you see a profit. And that obviously isn't the ideal situation. So really what Richard Sherman was talking about, and he's actually been in, if you bring that article back up about Richard Sherman, mentions in there a little bit further down that he has bought a fair amount of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and what was the other one? Ethereum. Yeah. So he's actually purchased a number of different ones. So he's been dabbling in it, as have been a lot of people. And the lesson learned here is that don't use cryptocurrency like change amounts for small purchases, at least at this point. Now, that may change at some point down the road, but at least at this point, it probably makes sense to use cryptocurrency for a little bit larger purchases.
Maybe like buying a yacht, you know.
that's a little bit larger. If you have enough cryptocurrency to buy yourself a yacht, Kyle, well, more power to you. All right, we are going to share with you also a cool event that's coming up in Westport, Washington here today, and we're going to wrap up our show with that and share with you some footage of what happens out in Westport. Now, I would love to see in this local community, Kyle, I'd love to see an event that's anything like this. It's pretty incredible, but this is the Rusty Scuppers Pirate Days. It will happen this year on June 22, 23, 24. If you'd like to go out for that weekend and you're planning on staying in the area, I can tell you that as of right now, because this is such a popular event and so many people go, and the people that know about it plan so far and ahead, that this is going to be, like I said, end of June, but all the hotel motels are already booked in Westport. So the closest place to stay, I think, is 5 minutes away, which isn't bad, obviously still. But the reason why a lot of people stay out there is events go on from morning till night and late at night. And so there's some really, really elaborate pirate costumes that show up out there. People really come dressed to the nines for this. They have a pirate dress costume or contest rather that happen there. You're going to see a lot of cannon fire. They have an end of the street that's set up where they have cannon battles out there and gun battles. It's all in good fun with black powder. Then many of the guys that come from around the states, both men and women, they have made these they call them these mini brigs. So they're like a little pirate ship. And they have these pirate battles out in the harbor. And they're very fun. They're like somebody was, and they're always cracking these pirate jokes. They began one of these, just to give you an example, they began one of these little skirmishes, and somebody yells out, "Men, fire at will!" And one of the pirates yells, "Why is Will always being picked on?" So there's all this stuff going on. So it was great. We watched the video here just a little while ago, and I was reminded that my little daughter Jackie is on there. So when you see the little blondie come up and go, "Arr!" Yeah, it's a family event. You can bring your kids. They will love it as much as the adults. It is a really, really good time. So again, that is June 22nd, 23rd, 24th, coming up in Westport, Washington. So we're going to sign off with that. Kevin Hunter and Kyle Torgerson here on Northwest Digital News. Watch the video here on the Rusty Scuppers Pirate Days, and we'll plan to see you out there the end of June here this year.
One, march!
Right there. And then that touches fire.
Be on your worst behavior.
Yeah, guys. All right, let's see who's going to be the best scallywag of all. This last. What's his name? His name's Foley too.
You doing a good job?
No. Does he purr like a kid?
Congratulations, Captain. Right back in the ground. Great job, all of a lot of you. Yeah.